1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, YouTube, you should be good now. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? What? Still nothing? Come on, yo. What's up with this? 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I'm gonna have to put this mic all inside my mouth and carrying on. Yeah, baby, you do make it look good. You're almost as pretty as your grandfather. Ha. Okay, where we at? Am I back? I see my okay, my little sound here. 1, 2, 1, 2. You hear me? Can you hear the word that are coming out of my mouth? Say something. If you see something, say something. How about that? What's up, people? How y'all doing? Yeah, y'all should be getting me in stereo. Why on YouTube, on Facebook, pretty soon in 12 other places. Okay, Jen, can you hear me now? Janice. All right, all right, all right. Let's try this. We're gonna keep on till we get this right. 1, 2, 1, 2. Gonna start this thing off right. Yo. So, folks, how y'all doing? I see we got some new people in the house, some new faces in the place. Yeah. Janice, you should be able to hear me on YouTube now. Where you at? Where you at? Okay, YouTube. Give me some heads up. You say you can hear me. Where you at, Janice? Where you at? Janice Marie Motifa. Quella Marie. I'm giving everybody names tonight. What's up, people? How y'all doing? 1, 2. My sound should be better than this. I'm gonna have to upgrade my mics and all of that. All right. What's up, people? Um, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys having a good Easter weekend. I checked my mailbox. I don't have one solid rabbit, so y'all better get it together. Somebody better send me a solid rabbit. That's what I know. If you're from New Orleans, I want some gold brick eggs. Okay. I don't know why that's the only place that do them, but anyway, how y'all doing, people? I'm tripping a little bit. Let me stand up so y'all can see me. Ah, yeah. What's that? What's that? That's my man right there. So these shirts are gonna be these shirts, sweatshirts, and what have you are gonna be available pretty soon, probably in the next week. I'm negotiating prices on my t-shirts, sweatshirts. So when the time comes, y'all make sure y'all show a brother love, right? Right, right, right. So much foolishness this week, folks. There's so much I could talk about. I'm gonna try to keep it down to a minimum. I'm gonna try to get the tough stuff out of the way in the beginning, so that I'm not going off the rails and running out of breath as I get to the end of the show. So let me just go ahead and get started. I want to say good evening and welcome everybody to the show. Thank you for spending your Thursday nights with me. You know, as always, I'm truly humbled that you choose to be here with me. My show is called "I Got Something to Say," so it must be true. My name is Hank Batiste, alias the Renaissance Man, aka Rennie. I'm your host tonight, and the voices in my head, they're trying to breathe. Almost a year has passed, and this punk ass cop that I've given a name to, his new moniker is the Minneapolis Murderer with a badge and a gun. is finally going on trial for the murder of George Floyd. I guess the defense thought that time would cool the anger and the outrage that America felt last May. Nearly 11 months later, a new president and a pandemic has lapsed. And one glimpse of George Floyd taking his last breath, frothing at the mouth, calling for his mom, and saying, "I can't breathe." And the outrage and the anger comes right back like it was yesterday. This week, we're also starting to see the fallout from what I call a super spread of spring break in Miami. Now, New York is back in the news for spiking COVID numbers, as it is 27 to 30 other states. We also heard about the vaccine's efficacy and effectiveness. I'm trying to get this out, folks, because when I start thinking about this guy, and I try to talk about him first so I could get past the emotional side, but we're starting to hear about the efficacy and effectiveness of this COVID vaccine in young people under the age of 16. So now, I call it COVID 21. This thing has been around for 2 years. So we keep hearing about new strains. We keep hearing about how it's mutated and so forth and so on. COVID 21 is going to test us. COVID 21 is going to test us to see if we're going in another lockdown, another quarantine. But basically, it's up to us to decide whether we're going to continue to wear our mask, whether we're going to continue to do things, or whether we're going to jump the gun at the 11th hour and wind up back in the lockdown or quarantine. Georgia, and I got a couple of people on here from Georgia, has become one of the first battleground state to effectively pass what I call James Crow III. This is Jim Crow on steroids. To pass legislation, the governor, I'm not going to call his name because I'm not going to give him oxygen on my show, but the governor of Georgia signed the bill into law, restricting voting in the state of Georgia. Now more than 250 pieces of legislation, 250 pieces of legislation, people, in more than 43 states are on the books to try to regress under the under the throes of James Crow III. So we've got some work to do, folks. We got some work to do. Suddenly, the only thing that the GOP, the TOP, the Trump OP, the QAnon OP is talking about is how these so-called legislative bills and laws are not Jim Crow. These are legislators. These are not people. These are not the people. They're scared because Biden is getting too much support from across the board. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. And lastly, I'm going to ask you a question because this goes back to the heart of what I'm saying. You ever notice how when Black people talk about Black Lives Matter, they never spew a lot of hate? They never feel it's necessary to sacrifice others to get what's due us. Let me say this one more again. The difference between Black power and Black love and white power and white love is simple. I do not have to hate you to love myself. White power hates anything that's not white Anglo-Saxon. We're talking about an inclusive kind of thing. So tonight's show is called Divisions and Contradictions. Divisions and contradictions are the reason why I cannot breathe. Divisions and contradictions are why I can't breathe. I got something to say, folks. It must be true. So let's omit the logic and do this. George Floyd. George Floyd was a troubled man who transcended America's consciousness. When I think of white privilege, nothing illustrates my point more than the contrast, the difference between how George Floyd was disrespected, how he was apprehended and murdered, compared to any other mass murderer. Take your pick. Even last week, when a murdering cop killer was apprehended, he was shot once in the leg, and it wasn't a death shoot. They didn't go for a center mass. They didn't go for a headshot. All of those snipers I know that they had out there. So somebody was talking to somebody, and they had an order to decelerate, even after he shot at one cop and killed another. Then I see the CNN polls prior to the beginning of the Minneapolis murderers trial, and it says that less Americans today feels like what Chauvin did was murder than last year. Like somehow this year, 11 months later, George Floyd is not as dead. Like somehow 11 months later, he can suddenly breathe. Hold on, it's getting hot up in here, people. It's been 11 months. Nothing has changed. The man is dead. His child is going to have to grow up without a father. And listening to those children, that child is scarred for life. Now that the trial has begun, we hear this 18-year-old girl who was 17, who was tasked. She had to be in the right place at the right time with a little 9-year-old cousin or whatever. She says every night she talks to George and she apologizes for not being able to do more. This 9-year-old talks about how it made her sad. If that's not PTSD on steroids, I don't know what is. These little girls, these young ladies, imagine how they're going to feel the rest of their lives. I hope they're not polluted with all kind of psychotropic drugs to try to maintain. These are the people that not only should be suing the city of Minneapolis. Let me move on. I have a problem. Chauvin is facing second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. First of all, how do you go from second-degree murder to second-degree manslaughter? What happened to first-degree manslaughter? Shouldn't have been manslaughter at all. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if any one of us have more than 9 minutes to think about our actions and we proceed recklessly and take someone's life, the charge would simply be murder. They would say you had time to think about this, to calm down and think about your actions. So I seriously have a problem when manslaughter is even on the table. To me, giving Derek Chauvin a chance, you're giving him a chance that he denied George Floyd. Then I look at this jury. Okay, the jury is so-called diverse. You got 3 black men, 1 black woman, 2 women that refer to themselves as biracial or multiracial. You got 2 white women and you got 4 white men. Then you got 2 white women. No, you got 2 white men and 4 white women. Then you got 2 white women who are alternates. The only black woman has already broken down after listening to the testimony of Darnella Frazier, this little 17, now she's 18. She was 17 and she was the one who took this video. After hearing this little girl and hearing this 9-year-old girl, this woman broke down. This gives us no indication on how she's going to vote, but it tells you how this is affecting the jurors as well. The Minneapolis murderer, Derek Chauvin, I call him Floyd's executioner. He refused to listen to his police colleagues. He refused to listen to the EMT who was there and saw George go limp, saw the frothing from his mouth stop and him become lifeless, and she volunteered to examine George and render some type of aid because she noticed that the cop was negligent in doing so. Even one of the other cops standing by saying, "Do you think?" And he says, "No." So how in okay, let me what does it take for police to understand? What does it take for police to understand why we are so pissed when they continue to de-escalate encounters with white cop killers and mass murderers? Why do they find it so easy to take an unarmed black man's life? Why do they find it so easy to tell the same lie time after time after time? I felt for my safety. I felt like my life was in danger. What about this kid carrying an assault weapon? You felt nothing threatening about that? What about the one last week who shot at you and you opted to shoot him in the leg? Why do they, like Ron Johnson, say that they find it so easy to relate to a murderer with a literal smoking gun in their hands and so hard to show compassion for a black man? This is just the one of so many, many contradictions. But moving on. When I talk about James Crow III, and I talk about this Georgia governor who made a name for himself, really. So all of these guys are about notoriety and power. He made a name for himself by signing a voter restriction bill. He signed this bill into law that limits the number of polls, the number of hours that the polls are open in urban areas like Atlanta, and he makes it illegal for you to bring food or drink to someone in line. By restricting the number of polls, the number of days of early voting, and so on, it ensures that the lines are going to be longer. So now you're going to have old people, people with medical conditions or pre-existing conditions out there, and you're saying no one can bring them a drink. No one can bring them something if they're having blood sugar issues without running the risk of being arrested. Are you kidding me? So you mean to tell me you're going to have cops posted at polling places looking to arrest people trying to vote just so that you can maintain power and gain notoriety, so that you could be the next Donald J. Despicable Donnie? Here's where I flip the script, folks. These are elected officials, right? These are the real racists. These are the ones who are stirring the pot and causing you and me to fight amongst ourselves. These are the ones that's instigating the divide and conquer in their quest for power. And here's how I'm going to illustrate it for you. I live in Florida, right across the Indian River from the Kennedy Space Center. This is one of Trump's strongholds. This is definitely a Republican stronghold. Would say that this is probably 60 to 65% Republican, but it means nothing. My neighbors range from avid Biden and Bernie supporters to staunch Trumpies. But politics, we've learned, this is where the division's in this small little, what I call a microcosm that is America. Case in point, my washing machine was broken. My neighbor is a staunch Trump supporter and Republican. He doesn't wear a MAGA hat, but he makes it well known what his feelings are. But he respects my feelings and I respect his. When my washer was broke, he says, "Do you want me to take a look at it?" And I put the guy off for probably about 6 weeks. He came up today, he went out, he bought the part, he came here, he fixed it. And I said, "Let me pay you." He says, "No, don't worry about it." I said, "At least let me pay you for the parts." He says, "Okay, $25. I do wellness checks because of my medical background on my neighbors that are in close proximity. I can't stop. Cynthia Marie posted a cartoon last week. I looked at the cartoon and I said she looked like she had a radical mastectomy. When I walk up, I see somebody, I look at the colors of the eyes. I look at how they breathe. I look at whether they have labor breathing. I look at the shape and size of their chest. I look at all of these things because once a healthcare professional is like once being a Marine. I'm always going to be that. So I talk to people. A lot of you have called me and asked me medical questions, and I don't mind, you know? So this is what we do. We all come from very diverse backgrounds. Some people from Michigan, some people from Massachusetts, some people from New Orleans, some people from Texas, some people from South Carolina, but we get along. Mainly because I tell them these people are in there to make power and name for themselves. My neighbor asked me for 75 cents to catch the bus. I dug my hand in my pocket. I had $2.75. He came back to me the next day and gave me $5. I said, "Well, I'll get you." He says, "No, keep the change and pay it forward. Give it to somebody who needs it." This is the real America, people. This is the divisions that have been instigated mostly by Trump. And now that these other knuckleheads see how popular and how powerful he became, they're following suit. This is why I started this nonprofit. So I'm not promoting myself, but I'm letting you know in the days to come, these are some of the things that I'm going to be dealing with. But I am not going to do it alone. I've got a lot of friends out there who all have skill sets, who all can participate in each one, reach one, to teach one. So we're gonna get this done. All of this bullshit legislation to restrict voting rights, all of this divide and conquer, here's where it ends. I keep saying we must stop allowing our so called public servants who we have elected to divide us and force us to fight amongst ourselves while they get rich. Back in January 2017, I said Biden was the right man for the job because I said he had mass appeal. I said all the time that he had spent in Congress, he had evolved. He's not the same person, and he's one of the few that have, to be honest. I said he could hit the ground running, and now we're starting to see that mass appeal. We're starting to see he's not trying to get support from the Republicans in Congress or in the Senate. He's appealing to Republicans that are voters. So here's what they didn't, here's what they couldn't stop. As they restrict some of these voting rights, some of these same people that once voted for them are looking at them with their deplorable behaviors, and they're saying no more, no mas. So it's going to backfire, folks. So everybody that is a voter, whether you call yourself a Democrat, a Republican, a conservative, a moderate, a liberal, a progressive, whatever, all of these titles mean nothing. You should be signing a petition to make sure that every person has a voice and have a vote. Biden knew how the GOP played obstruction when Obama was in the White House. So he was ready for it. He started off doing what? Executive orders. He started off with, and I told you this back in November, December. I said the first thing he was going to do was have to unify the Democrats. You understand what I'm saying? So you got the progressives, he got the moderates, and he got the conservative Democrats on the same page. So they're working together. I knew he would do that. Strong Creole powers. Okay. Might be that little piece of paper on the wall, too. He knew that Moscow Mitch was going to try to change the narrative because Mitch is one of the. What gets me is Kentucky is the poorest state. Conversely, Mitch is the richest senator in the Senate. Go figure. He's doing something other than just cashing checks from the U.S. Senate and the United States government. Folks, I started this nonprofit because I knew the only way that we could defeat James Crow III is for all us to stay engaged, regardless. We're going to do this. It literally hurt my heart last week, a week before last, when I heard Black people saying insensitive things like, where were the Asians when we were marching? I could easily say it's not like all Blacks marched. It's not like all Blacks were on the same page. But it was obvious that some of them voted for Obama. It was obvious that some of them were out there because I saw pictures of them on the Capitol steps. So stop participating in this hateful rhetoric. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. We will win when we stop allowing these self-anointed demigods to carry out their agendas and divide us. Everyone should be, let me say this one more time, Everyone should be signing a petition to end this racist Jim Crow the third tactic. No matter. These people are just seeking power. Last week, I got emotional. I started talking about the normal white men murdering people and getting taken into custody. I don't know, folks. Black love is black power. When we say Black Lives Matter, we mean that when we don't want murderers. Let me back up. When we say Black Lives Matter, we mean that we don't want murderers to be killed. We want us. We demand that we be shown the same respect as the gun-toting, foul-mouthed redneck or the mass murderer. We've all seen these videos of Jim Bob getting pulled over by the police and mouthing off and calling them son of a bitches and this, that, and the other with his rifle and a rifle rack behind the seat and tell him he's not getting out the car. We want that same respect. We don't want you to kill other people. We just don't want you to kill us. When we say Black Lives Matter, we don't mean that everyone else should be denied a chance to thrive. We mean that we should be shown equity, not necessarily equality, but equity. Because some of us are here and we only need this much. Others are down here and they need that much to get here. When we say Black Lives Matter, folks, we want to know that our sons and our daughters, our mothers and our fathers, we want to know that each of us can have a bad day and not end up as the next statistic or the rally cry for the next Remember Trayvon or Say Her Name march. When we have a bad day, we might raise our voice, we might cough, cuss, we might throw a temper tantrum. We might even steal something. We might self-medicate, get drunk, or get high. When we have a bad day, one thing is for damn sure, we don't buy an assault rifle and go out and murder 10 people. George Floyd was not an angel, but neither was any of the many mass murderers in Colorado, in Georgia, in Florida, in Texas, in New York, in South Carolina, in California, and so on and so on and so on. What's crazy is for every person that was killed by the police, there's at least one mass murderer who was taken into custody alive and unharmed. When we have a bad day, we just want to make it home. We want someone to show us respect and make it home alive. To all of the so-called religious rights, to all of the Bible thumpers, let me remind you something. Before you condemn George Floyd, remember, Noah was a drunkard. David was an adulterer. And God not only loved them, he used them. Before you allow yourself to be used, before you allow yourself to put someone else down, anyone, remember that this is Easter weekend. Today is Holy Thursday. You may not wash your feet, but wash your hands of this divisionary hate. This could very well be your last supper. Happy Easter to each of you. That's all I got for you tonight. I apologize. I'm full, folks. Watching these little girls, I see my daughters, I see my granddaughters, and I imagine if they had to carry this for the rest of their days. And they're constantly asking themselves why. Folks, before I bid you good night, I want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for bearing with me. This was probably one of the hardest messages because of the time of year, because of what's going on, and because when someone, the thing that pisses me off most, and I'm going to just say this, and then I'm going to let this go. The thing that pisses me off most when something like this happens is the person that is killed by the police is suddenly put on trial. But when there's a mass murderer, they're always talking about discounting. They're always talking about something that they had some kind of mental problem. They had a bad day. They were a sex addict. They were beat up when they were in school. They were teased by other children. Why is it a murderer gets to be humanized and the person that is murdered is dehumanized and put on trial? Like somehow they asked to be killed. That's all I got for you tonight, folks. That's it. Remember, don't be so afraid to die that you forget to live for a purpose. As always, I urge you to go to my YouTube, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, click the bell. It'll let you know when I go online and I do some YouTubes. My name is Hank Batiste, alias the Renaissance Man, also known as Rennie. I'm your host. I got something to say. It must be true. I say omit the logic because this shit don't make sense. But we have to get it done, folks. I'll see you next week. Same Baptiste time, same Baptiste place. As always, imparting love, peace, hair grease. I'm out of here. Good night.